finances of British Telecom over 40 years ago, and for the last 25 years he's been working in pre-sales, sales and solution focused for the connectivity for the most technology types. Please welcome with me Paul Howard.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning. I guess I should congratulate a lot of you for making it here for the first session of the day after the night's frivolities, we'll call them that, and everything that's gone on. So thank you. So I want to actually follow on from what Andrew was saying. You'd think we've actually spoken to each other before all of this, because a lot of what he said fits right into what I want to be talking about. So a lot of what we talk about here in the challenges, with FTTH and everything with the multi-gig, actually that falls into the home user. As Andrew was saying, that it's not all about the delivery of the broadband. It's not all about the speed that we get there. It's what can we put in the customer premises, in their homes, that can utilize the speeds that were ever increasing to them with the increases in the multi-gig. So that brings on challenges about the products that we actually want to put in the home. But also, we need to consider for the ISP, as Andrew was also saying, there's the challenges for them to be able to monetize, but also for being able to operate cost effectively. With the increases in the speeds ever happening, always advancing, there is the impact on the ISP where they need to be able to deploy these products and keep up with the speeds that are being delivered because of the demands also of the customer. The customer saying, okay, I'm now paying for a X speed on my broadband, and what I need to be able to do is utilize that. I want to be able to connect to that. I want to be able to have my connectivity. I want to be able to reach that in various different ways. I want the speed. I want the whole home coverage. So these are some of the challenges that we're seeing for the ISP, is they need a product they can deploy, which they do not have to keep on swapping out each time there's an increase. So the product needs to grow. The CPE, the Wi-Fi mesh needs to grow with the increase in broadband speeds that we're actually putting out there. So the way we need to do this is look at those CPE devices and the technologies we use to ensure that they can grow and deliver for the customer. It's all about keeping the customer happy at the end of the day. If the customer's not happy, they're either going to move, they're going to maybe, as we increase, not take the next step with us. Maybe they're going to say, well, the last step I took did nothing for me. Yeah, so what's the point? That's no good for the ISP, and it's no good for us as vendors here. Revenue slows down, right? Not what we want. So being able to fulfill the product that is required is one of the challenges and one of the things we have to step up and meet. So, just looking at some of the things that we need to be looking at. If we are delivering, we've already been speaking here about this year, as Andrew said, 2024 is going to, XGS PON is there, 10 gig. That's good, but if we're delivering that on the WAN side, we need to be able to effectively connect to that and be able to use technologies to deliver on that in the home. So having devices that have the connectivity for the WAN side to start with, that flexibility of being able to connect that, whether that be a direct fiber in, or whether you're going to use a 10 gig Ethernet connection for your WAN, having the flexibility in the product is imperative. again, as that grows from 1 gig to 2.5 and getting up to the 10 gig, the last thing the customer wants, but the last thing the ISP wants, is having to swap that product out all the time. That all costs money. That all hits their bottom line. That's not a good thing. It's also disruption to the customer, and there's the potential that when you're rolling those different products out each time you get an increase in speed, that you can impact the service. You end up requiring maintenance. You end up requiring truck rolls, having engineers going to site. All costs again, which is what we have to try and avoid. And so going with a product that actually has the ability to grow to that in the first place is a good choice. So also stands to reason, if you've got 10 gig coming in, then you want to be able to have a 10 gig connectivity on the inside to be able to utilize that 10 gig broadband. So having devices with not just a 10 gig WAN, but also a 10 gig LAN capability. Following on from that, Andrew also mentioned about Wi-Fi 7, right, the last meter. I'd kind of argue with that a little bit and hope it's a bit more than a meter, but I get your point. So Wi-Fi 7 certainly brings us, as Andrew mentioned, the capability of the speed, the connectivity, the ability to be able to get onto the network and utilize that XGS-PON 10 gig broadband WAN. But then we have the challenge of getting that around the home. So it's not just about the first device as we hit the home, it's about spreading that around the rest of the home. So talking about Wi-Fi mesh there and getting that into the different areas of the home to deliver the connectivity and the speed and the coverage that the customer base wants. And again, that actually grows with the services. As the services increase on the WAN, we need to ensure that the product is capable of utilizing that in the home. And along with all this, we need to be conscious that there needs to be some level of management and control and monitoring for the ISP. Again, if they're putting this in the home, they need to ensure that they can actually continue to deliver that service, make sure it's stable, and if the customer calls and says, hey, you know, I couldn't get my iPhone connected XYZ on this service at this time, they have the ability to go back, diagnose, and look at that and be able to support the customer, again, avoiding any truck rolls. So I've already mentioned this to the guys, this is why I'm going to do a quick jump over 2 slides because it didn't really flow. Wi-Fi mesh. So Wi-Fi mesh, we all see that as, okay, I have my router and I'm going to put APs. Done, finished, Wi-Fi mesh, right? It's not quite as easy as that. We all know that the challenges in the people's homes are going to be around different building types, different sizes, different areas. Some of them may have big stone walls. Can you really use a Wi-Fi backhaul to create the mesh? So it's imperative that we, as an industry, we have multiple solution type products to be able to get that Wi-Fi mesh capability in the home to give that coverage. So devices that may be using an Ethernet as the backhaul, maybe power over Ethernet to actually power those devices. Also, maybe they're getting an Ethernet cable to that location is difficult as well. So maybe the requirement for Wi-Fi mesh being delivered on a backhaul over power line. And also mesh devices for outside. All of these products enable the delivery of that Wi-Fi service, the Wi-Fi connectivity in the home that then allows for the utilization of the broadband, high-speed, XGS-PON network that they're actually connecting to. So, there you go back one. So, I mentioned about management for the ISP, controlling the network and looking at that. That's all has to be around standards. There's a number of organizations, obviously the guys out there doing the various different ACS and management platforms. And with the new technologies or the new standards, 369 USP type stuff, where you can actually not just look at the first device, not just looking at the router, but actually getting in to the home and monitoring and analyzing the Wi-Fi mesh devices that are in the home, and then from there going on and seeing the clients and seeing how they're performing, where they're connecting, what the speeds. All of these are becoming very, very important to the ISP. They were challenges before, and we're actually removing some of these challenges. As an industry, we're actually looking at that in a very sensible way with these standards. Yeah? So very, very important to allow and help and enable the ISP to be profitable, to monetize, to be able to keep profitable in their deliveries. And finally, talking about standards, very, very important. Again, I've mentioned about the management standards, the 369 USP, things like that. We talked about mesh, but of course, we need to be talking about easy mesh. We need to be talking about enabling the customer. Of course, we all want, as vendors, we all want them to buy only our kit. We don't want them to buy anybody else's. But the reality is that there are, we would say in the UK, horses for courses. So specific products for specific jobs. And it stands to reason that you're not going to cover every single scenario. So you need those standards to come together and enable a set of products to be able to work with each other from the various vendors. And although we stand here and look at each other and say, no, don't do that. But in reality, we know as an industry that has to happen. And it's the right thing to happen. Yeah, and that also leads into these other standards, being able to implement those and again, make products work together, make that easier for the ISP, make that easier for the customer, and remove these challenges that can come along. Okay, the topic here is challenges of FTTH or the multi-gig, but those challenges push across into the whole environment, the whole scenario. So having these standards, being governed by the various different organizations, very, very important, and things that we have to focus on and concentrate on as industry vendors, and I would say sitting up here, industry leaders, right? So very, very important to do. And that is where we see the challenge. Getting those devices, those standards, the connectivity, and making sure they grow as the WAN speed and the multi-gig increases. Those devices have to be able to go with it and be able to fulfill the requirement of the customer. So thank you. That's me done.